All our fights used to start Sunday after church.
Yeah.
All of them. She was like, you don't sleep with me. And I was like, when I'm here, why don't you tell me?
Yeah.
So that we can handle whatever it is. Because it's normally the other way around. It's the woman who does not want sex.
Yeah.
Now I was the one who didn't want sex.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't with this
can't
person.
handle.
We can't have sex and then the following minute it's fighting, it's everything that is bad. She called some women from a church, nini, and they came and we thought we sorted out things. The day I went back and landed, a guy calls me. I was in Mandera that time. A guy calls me and he says, hey, no. She calls me and says, please call this number and tell this guy to stop calling me. And I'm like, why? So you can tell him to stop calling you. Then she said, no, you call. Then I called the guy and the guy says, hey, no, chill. Boss, I'm not calling your wife. Your wife called me and said she wants me to come sleep with her because you've deprived her of sex.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, my tribe, and welcome to the Chill Out with Makadis show. Today we have a very, very interesting topic, and yes, you guessed right. We are going to talk about marriage, and the big elephant in the room is how does church contribute to the failure of marriages? And today with me is an amazing guest, Dr. Fred Ouma. Good morning, Fred.
Good morning, Makadis. It's always a pleasure sitting down and having chats with you. I believe that today is going to be very interesting because we'll share our experiences on marriage and what we think the church does or does not do to make marriages work. And my name's Fred Ouma. I'm a PhD, double PhD, as she loves to say. I'm both, but I love to look at myself as a human development specialist, a person who wants people to grow and overcome their challenges through built up capacity. So on this, I come purely as a human being who wants to share a good story, and doesn't have to be a story that makes us sob, but a story that will teach us and help the church especially to know how to handle marriage in a realistic way. So hang in there and let's see what goes on.
Fred, we've been talking about these stories of marriage and what has been happening, and they need to tell people the truth on how marriage is very beautiful, for one, and two, that marriages can fail,
absolutely.
And three, the contribution of the church into the building of the marriage, and the contribution of the church into the failing of the marriage.
Absolutely.
So, like, we've been having these conversations, and it's very interesting because I think I have gone through marriage, and now I am divorced. And there's a lot I've been thinking and internalizing and thinking, oh my goodness, here is where the problem began, and just being able to go and tell the stories, and especially with men of cloth. And when I say men, I mean both pastors. There are pastors who are male and female, and their wives and husbands.
Absolutely.
And there's just a lot that the church has covered that is not telling out there, and marriages are really getting a hit. And I don't know by just talking about it if it's gonna heal somebody, it's gonna help somebody make a decision, it's gonna open the eye of somebody. That's why I believe that us having this conversation is very important.
Absolutely.
And even sharing our experiences. Given that I was married close to almost 15 years, and there's so much, the good and the bad, and the ugly, and why we need to talk about it.
True.
So maybe I know you have a story to tell us, and your perspective on this. And we respect that it's gonna be your opinion, but then you earn the right to actually talk because you've been there, done that, experienced it, and you can tell the world what you think, and turekebishe tu kidogo, so that we are having more marriages making it than failing.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me here. And I think no one, or we are not the people who say that because we failed, other people must fail to validate us.
Yeah.
No. And I don't think, I think most of our failures were great lessons. And I want to say that first and foremost, maybe you don't know, I've taught in church. I've been a minister in church. I've been a teacher, and I think I was a great teacher. I still teach the gospel. And I think where churches, where we're getting it wrong as Christians, is that we think that church is where perfect people exist. And the world outside there is where imperfect people live. That's absolutely, that's absolute hogwash, because Jesus says that a person who's well does not need a doctor. So it means that church should be like a hospital, where sick people congregate in hospital, and people feel better, go out. So I think church should start to reflect in introspect, and we should say that we are in church because we are weak and because we have imperfections, and we come to God to cure our imperfections. So with that, with the perception that church is perfect and ministers are mini Jesus and deputy Jesus, they cannot sin, they cannot fall sick, they cannot die, is a problem. So speaking from my experience, I think if I had the revelation that I have now about stepping out when it's not working earlier, I'd have really saved a lot of time for both of us. I don't want to hate on the other person and make them the bad person and I the good one. But I want to say that if I had the courage, the revelation and courage to step out and understanding of what should happen when it's not working, it would have saved all of us a lot of time. But it's good that you have this opportunity to talk about it. I believe the time that was spent will be recovered somehow. But so just to concur with what you're saying, I think church has more of done damage to marriage, to marriages, than building them. Because we've made marriage, we've stereotyped marriage first and foremost. Yet marriage is very unique. The same way individuals are unique. You cannot duplicate your fingerprints onto someone else, for instance. Even your own child, they have their own fingerprint. So us saying that because you got married in church or you met someone in church, then it must work and it must be perfect. I think that's the beginning of everything. Because the moment you perfect a human being, you try to perfect a human being, that's the moment when you bring out their imperfections. And I think that's the same thing that we've done to marriage. Instead of looking at marriage on what could go wrong so that we fix it early, we've looked at it as a perfect thing that human beings are coming to spoil. So it stops being about the people and starts being about the marriage. So marriage is bigger than the people in it. So I think basically that's where it all begins.
You know, you said something. You said that if you knew what you know now, you would have left early.
Absolutely.
So what is that thing you know now that if you knew then you would have left?
Oh, thank you. Great question. I think it takes me now back to my genesis, how I met this person. I used to work for a consultancy firm. I was in management at a very young age. So as I grew up in that, there were people who were my juniors at work, and some were younger, some were older. All of them were married somehow. So there was a lot of peer pressure. And in these, I was like, hey, maybe it's time. I need to get someone. So I met someone, and I'd prayed about it, and I was like, maybe it's my time. I told God, show me a sign. There are things that we need to know earlier, like for every good blessing that comes, a false one precedes.
That's true.
If you're looking for a job, a fake one will come first. To waste your time, then the real one comes. If you wear it out. Story of Abraham. Before Isaac, Ishmael comes. That's the story of blessings. So my first encounter with a woman after my prayer, I I was like, she's the one.
Yeah.
And it was
those you know how church teaches us.
Yes.
Even.
Yes.
Like holy, like you're not even trying to subtract or
no,
whatever.
no.
It's always
what has come, it is that. No question.
God amenishoni wewe.
Kabisa. And I was like, this is the person. And you see, God does not say that your spouse will fall from heaven.
Yeah.
The Bible says that he who finds.
Yeah. So
Finding comes after searching.
Yeah, you have to.
But I didn't search.
Yeah.
I just met someone that I'd seen like a year earlier. Hivi tu akaniita. Actually tulikuwa kwa ferry, nikaomba kuna mtu anakuita kuangalia I saw a woman. I said it is her.
Hata ni yeye alikuita.
Kabisa aliniita. So I didn't even find. So I was like, oh my goodness, she's come, miracles. And another thing that I learned is the criteria. There must be a criteria.
Yes.
For you to find, you must be looking using a certain criteria. The criteria that we use is wrong. I was looking for, but the things that I was looking for, I found.
Yeah.
All of them.
Rangi ya thao.
Rangi ya thao. Akwe half this tribe and this tribe. I won't mention the tribes. Akwe na hips, akwe fiti.
Akwe na nini?
Kabisa. Of course. Kabisa. Nyashi kuwe, hips zikuwe, miguu kuwe hivi. And I'm telling you, she came packaged. But I didn't look at the software.
Yeah.
I didn't desire the software.
Yeah.
And we were given according to the desires of our hearts.
Yeah.
And we also attempted by the desires of by the lusts of our hearts.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is the person. Now, what I know now is, if you're not my friend, we can't do this thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Because my friend will use love that will cover their 1,000 sins.
Yeah.
But if you're not my friend, we will be service providers to each other. I'll be doing this and you do this. Terms of reference, terms of service.
Terms of service.
Upper. So we become service providers to each other, and that's why there's nothing, when the boat is rocked just a bit, there's no glue.
Yeah.
Because we're not friends. Friendship is a big thing.
Yeah.
In Luo we say, what imedogo siep. Yani, even relatives, even if I'm your brother, we're not relatives if you're not friends.
Yeah.
Relations are built using friendship.
Yeah.
Right? So if I knew that I needed a friend first, and then third, I'll say something, and I hope it won't be offensive. I realized that if you're not intellectually compatible, you cannot be partners.
Yeah, I think there's a meme that always goes around.
Yeah.
Marry your like.
Yes.
You know, like if you're crazy,
yes,
go the crazy way with your partner as well.
Yes.
So that when you're doing crazy things, they don't find you childish.
Absolutely.
Or if you crack a joke, they don't laugh. They're like, this guy.
What's that? Yes.
You know, like you marry your equal, like marry your like.
Yes.
You know, like how we were told was it in physics, like poles attract. So like the problem is we attract for wrong reasons.
Very true.
And more often than not, it's always because it's physical reasons.
Absolutely.
The guy is tall, dark and handsome. Yes. And because I pay for tall, dark and handsome, then he can pay some bills, he can do this. You know what? I got married to my first boyfriend. I met him when I'm 16. So he had just graduated from theology. Yeah. And I was a young girl still in Form 2. So, you know, love. Like, I'm a hopeless romantic. Like, if I love somebody. Akina kuwaga ni kama nimeingiwa wazimu. So, what happened is that, one, I think even our age contributed to the failure of our marriage. Because by the time I was getting married, I think I was 21. And it wasn't, I was a child. I really didn't know what I really want from a man. Even if you asked me, it's like, he's just a good guy, he looks handsome. And he was, he is handsome. But then, like you said, you see, and what your eye sees is what you want. And then you get into this space, and it's not working. But then, there's the bit where we made the mistake, and I would really want to say this, that a lot of times, even with people who are divorced, there's always the blame to the other person, but there's what we contributed so that happens. And I would like us to talk about that a bit. what are some of the contributions we as individuals first contributed to this marriage going down? Because before we can go to what the church has done, we are the church first.
Exactly.
You know, like before we can go to that sector, we know that we all have contributed to a building of something,
or bringing it down.
Or bringing it down. Yeah. And I think from my end, I grew up in a very dysfunctional family. At 14, my parents separated. I am a firstborn. There was a lot happening. You need to take care of your siblings. My mom got into depression. There was all these things happening, yeah? And growing up, I always saw my mom do stuff. So me, I used to be that chick who I don't ask, by the way. I do it. Own. And I'm like, surprise! We moved houses. I'm not telling him, I'm taking charge. And given that my personality also contributed, I have a very strong personality. So it contributed. And because I even didn't grow in a background where I saw submission, a background where I saw love, that was a language I didn't know how to speak. My love language was thorax. Unajua, I have to do this. You're not telling me anything. And given that it came with women empowerment, there was nothing you are telling me. I am doing things my way, and that's just it. I think also there's a part in my marriage I really drifted away. I didn't contribute to anything. I don't care whether you came back home or not. I don't care whether you were knocked by a car or not. I don't care whether I missed your call to return it. And that was the part where, and I think these are seasons, and maybe one day we should sit back and talk about the stages of actually a failing marriage, because you actually cited it kitambo sana, but the red flags, you kept painting them green.
That's true.
You know, you keep going and painting them green. But I think we should have another session where we actually talk about the stages of a failing marriage, so that you are able to cite it early,
to plug,
you know. So like for me, there's a stage I didn't care. I didn't care whether you are knocked down. I didn't care whether you've eaten or not. You know those ice chicks give people and you pass and you go. I didn't care whether you want to talk to me or not. It happened. And his interpretation was, maybe I'm seeing somebody else. Maybe I'm drifting out of sight, out of mind, and all this stuff. As much as that was not the case, it contributed to his thought pattern and his drifting away from this relationship. But then at that point, I didn't care whether you thought I'm cheating or not. Like my personality, I'm very social, so I talk to everyone. I attend events. I do all this stuff, you know. But it was always misinterpreted. And my personality was also a contributor to the insecurities in my marriage. Because I would be friends with Fred, we are vibing, we are talking, you've come to the show today, you know, and it would be really misinterpreted.
True.
So what do you think that even we who are seated here contributed to the failure of our marriage?
Absolutely.
And it starts even by the choices we made, the choices we made during those red flags. Because like you said, if we saw them early, we would have done what? We would have corrected
or taken a different path, or even left
at that point. Or even not even go ahead to getting married.
And
that's the thing. Is it pressure from church? Is it pressure from society? What is it? And what is our contribution before we go to the pressures? You know,
I think first and foremost, the way we are raised. We are raised to be fundamentalists. It's either black or white. It's either this or this, red or green. And we are not raised to be critical thinkers. And I think that, and that's why I speak, and I go back to intellectual compatibility, which means that our perception of things are in the same realm. You see, if you buy cars from Japan, their frequencies, radio frequencies, FM frequencies are different from ours. So they won't, if you don't put an FM expander, they won't catch our frequencies here. Why? Because there's a realm of thought. And that's why people laugh at jokes. That's why people are either friends or not. You know, you can be in a marriage with your enemy. But because there's an interest that brings you together, of maybe a title, husband, wife, and all that, But if what is not there is a seamless synchrony of your software, then it won't work.
Yeah.
And that's why I go back to the intellectual compatibility, where now what I talk about, like, let me give you my scenario and my contribution.
Yeah.
I've always grown up someone who loves to study. I love to study. I love to read. I love to know things. I explore.
Yeah.
And I cannot have a shallow discussion intellectually.
Yeah.
That's why maybe I'm here. I love to look at things not from the normal paradigm, but from another angle.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. At 6 years, I was asking God, where did you come from? And I would feel very terrified of that question, and I would keep wondering, you know.
Yeah.
So I expected my partner to be the same, or to adapt the same, to adapt to the same level of thinking. But then, you know, as I've come to realize, relationships are built or broken by expectations that are met and those that are not. No, expectations expressed and expectations met.
Yeah.
Because I think it's good that when people meet, they lay down their expectations, so that at that point you can know whether you're compatible or not. Do you think the same way or not?
Yeah.
So I think I was I threw in a lot of assumptions, because she was also 21.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay,
and I was 21. I was, I think, almost 28, 29.
Exactly his age.
Really?
As well.
So I always expected to, if she doesn't get things going the way I want her to think, then I have to pressure her to think the way I want her to think.
Yeah.
Right? So it almost became a parent-child relationship, because I kept pushing her to be what I wanted her to be. I actually moved her from Mombasa and we came to Nairobi.
Yeah.
And I wanted her to go back to school, to study, to do what, you know. So I think my biggest thing was that I was not empathetic.
Yeah.
I was not empathetic at all. I wanted to replicate another me, a female thread into my partner, so that if I spoke about a research methodology, she would pick.
Yeah.
Actually, I used to do lots of studies, and I tried to bring her on to do my data entry and analysis. And before I realized, she would ask,
like,
why you pushing these things on me? I want to sell clothes, for instance. And I would be like, but you've studied IT. Why would you want to go and sell clothes? But I love business. IT was for my dad. My dad wanted me to do IT. And to, you know. So I think the first thing that I did, I was not empathetic.
Yeah.
I did not realize that people can view the same thing differently.
Yeah.
Someone could think this is a vase, another one it's a jug.
Yeah.
And I didn't think about it that way. So I put a lot of pressure on her. And being a young person and changing towns and not finding security in me, I think it broke her bit by bit. And then the child came very fast, the first child.
Yeah.
Then I think now she was now trying to, because we had a lot of issues with her breastfeeding.
Yeah.
And I was like, I teach people to exclusively breastfeed. Your mother is telling you to add milk, to wean the baby at 3 weeks. She wanted to give milk at 3 weeks. And I was like, even my mother told her, give the baby water.
Yeah.
And I said, no water, no nothing, exclusive. So you see, and I was very tough on her, because I wanted her to do what I want. I'm the older one. I'm the one who knows. I'm the one who studied this thing. I'm the doctor. What I tell you, I advise people and they listen. So I think my contribution to the failure, because it's a stage, you know, it's stages, and I know it reached a place where I will travel and go to Tanzania maybe and try to. There's a time when I wanted to establish a company there, and I would stay for 3 weeks and I will only call 3 times.
Yeah.
Because at that time we've damaged each other, we've drifted, and when she called, she was like, so I'm the one who's supposed to call. And I'm like, Kwani, what's wrong if you call?
And even when you want to call, you are so tired. You keep postponing it, like
completely.
You can call 9.
Actually, I think I was running away. I was not working. I was running away. And as I said earlier, I don't want to paint her to be the demon in this show, although she also did a lot of terrible stuff. But I want to say that my contribution to it, I had wrong expectations. I was not empathetic. And I tried to mold out of her a wife that I had in my head. Not the wife that she was, not her to be a wife, but rather to bring a wife and place in her so that she wears the wife attire. And every time I looked at my friends, how they interact with their wives, I was like, why doesn't she do this? Why? So we couldn't hold a conversation, we couldn't do anything, and we were just there. And when the child came, and then another one, now the children gave us an excuse to live together. So basically those are my contributions.
And it has always been about the children.
And
it's funny how in the same breath it makes sense. Because I like I told you, I came from a dysfunctional family, so I always said I will do whatever it takes for my children to grow with their father. Where the more I did that, the more it ate me up. And given that I got married young, I didn't know my priorities. People came asking, are you sure you want to get married? And then I got my son before my marriage. He's still the dad. But then there was pressure from church as well. You are equally
validate.
Validate because he was a minister in church. How can you be with a woman who has a child out of church and you guys are not married? So like there was a lot of pressure. You could feel it. Like, guys, you have to be joined, you have to be one for you to serve. And you know, all those things. Like, I feel like that was even part of the red flag. The fact that for me to earn an opportunity to serve in church, I'm supposed to be married to this guy. You know, and because I was a church girl, so I grew up in church. He was a church guy. In fact, even his mom is a pastor. He's a pastor's kid. He's a pastor himself. He comes from a very a Christian family, a very strong Christian family. And I also have to say that my faith grew because of being in that environment. However, I feel there was a lot of pressure because of where we belonged, where we felt that this was home. Because every time my parents had issues at home, I would run to church. So I would sit in a corner and cry and tell God, please sort these things out. I'm tired, whatever, yada yada. Until when now my mom had to leave. And when she had to leave, all I could see was, if problems are there, leave. So I used to be those ones of hata na park. Na park sahi, na park naenda, hata msiniongelesha, hata msifanye nini. You know, and then I go maybe 2 days and then I come back and then I say, so niko nafanya nini? Now I have to unpack all these clothes and put them in the closet again. You get? But there was so much pressure for us to get married because I got my son out of wedlock. Him being a man of God, he could not be with me until he could not serve until we get married. So pastors would come to us and sit us down and talk and yada yada, you know, tell us, oh, you need to get married, you cannot live like this, you cannot do that. So you even see from the word go that we made that decision because of pressure from someone. You know. And then being young, you think, that's it. And then for me, I used to say, if I get married to a man of God, it means that my marriage will work. Wacha nikuambie, this category of people especially, or I would say this category of people in particular, are the ones who go through the worst.
It is true.
In this institution.
It is true.
If I tell you today, Fred, the number of pastors in my DM who are married, I won't mention names, but the number of pastors in my DM who are married just leaves a bad taste in the mouth. And that's what frustrates me. Like, guys, why can't we just say the truth? Why can't we just say this thing is not working? And yes, let's serve God, but this space here is not working. And we are taking a break.
She travels at home, then she overspends the money and calls, hey, nitumie this amount of money. I'm like, okay, I'll send tomorrow because right now I'm in the house, blah, blah. No. If you don't do that, I'm going to get a guy to screw me. I get money.
What?
You know, and this is the person that you call your wife.
Yeah.
And you're teaching in church.
Yeah.
And she's singing in church. And you're like, what's happening?
We would start a fight in the car and say, uko na bahati sana tunaenda church.
True.
Wacha tufike church tumalize, we are picking it from where
from there. True.
Na sasa hiyo mkimaliza church hivi amekwambia wacha niende kwa choo, umedrive umeenda unajua and you go and you feel so justified for doing it.
Yeah. And that's the women. If your wife tells you that she's going to sleep around to get money because you're not sending her money, what will you do?
Yeah.
And no one would address that.
Yeah.
Instead, they will say, no, you know, Brother Fred, you are a teacher. You cannot just be giving up. You should show us an example. You should guide your wife. How do I guide my wife's morality?